So what was it that made ex-Genesis guitarist Anthony Phillips dig so much deeper into his music? I'm John Beaudin from Rock History Music. There are things that happen in our lives that really change the direction in our lives. Sometimes they're big things like a divorce or a death. Most of them are quite subtle. Sometimes we don't even notice them. When studying a guy like Anthony Phillips, and I've been a fan of his solo music for a long time, it's hard not to notice that even though he was interested in multiple instruments when he was in Genesis, it wasn't until after leaving the band that he became a fully fledged, well-versed multi-instrumentalist. He dug deeper, and that's an understatement. I asked him, was there one thing that made you do that? Were there many?
We'd had a bad experience with an arranger on From Genesis to Revelation. It was probably our fault, really, in a way, but I was determined when I left the group to try and... I didn't have any great ideas about wanting to read music because I still hadn't really discovered classical music as such, but I knew I wanted to have the skill to be able to not... to be able to do it myself and not have to rely on somebody else. I then did have a number of sort of road to Damascus moments of listening to pieces of classical music which didn't sound like what I thought classical music was. Classical music to me had been rather staid and pretty and rather effete and not communicating a lot of emotion to me. But suddenly I was hearing things like Claire de Lune and particularly the Corelia Suite by Sibelius, which was gloriously melodic and gloriously inspiring. And I just thought, I want to know how to do that. I want to have I need to have those tools. I want to be able to orchestrate. And so my learning to read music was partly because I wanted to orchestrate. And so I then got swept down the whole path of studying music. And some of it was very boring. I mean, learning some of the forms of classical music, not sonata form stuff, was, you know, when you've been in Genesis and you've written stuff like The Knife and stuff, I'm not saying it's one's better than the other, of course, but so some of the studying of the form was I found quite tedious, but it was helpful. But harmony and counterpoint, I suppose, just learning writing for strings and all that kind of stuff. You know, you need to understand the architecture of it, and so there were moments of drudgery, but I knew that the end of it was that I wanted to be able to have all these skills, you know, to be able to write parts which were decent classical parts and not just throwing it to a arranger who would do something that I then didn't think was quite right. I became hooked on orchestral music, really, not all of it, but and also I was fascinated with the idea of combining rock instruments in an integrated way with classical instruments, not, you know, the rock band on one side of the stage and the orchestra on the other, you know, as a rather awkward foil. I wanted to do something integrated. So yeah, on the Geese of Ghost, it was great just being able to sort of try stupid things like combining a cor anglais with a fuzzy electric guitar and thinking, well, that's a great unison. That's valid, you know, that's good experimentation. So there's been a whole lot of fun with stuff like that.
In 1983, Anthony Phillips released an album in the US called Invisible Men. It was released in the UK the following year. It was more of a pop-ish project, and I liked it an awful lot. It's just been re-released and remastered. 2 CD set, you can pick it up now. We'll have more of our chat with Anthony Phillips coming up next Sunday. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, comment on our videos, and share our videos. Take good care. This is Rock History Music.